getting translated into the voice piece, where he's being told there is a 10-meter ahead, a 16, 17-year-old kid wearing a blue jersey and beige trouser and on a skateboard. And his influence is so high that he can now start taking decisions basis the images getting clicked as he starts walking, or even how he comes across in terms of working in office or at his home as well. This is the power of analytics and artificial intelligence, what we are talking about. Other example, something which is again very, I would say, relevant is healthcare industry. And this is something what we say in some aspect of the world, the job of radiologist will be reduced to just what we say, taking maybe MRIs and CT scans. Because machine learning and artificial intelligence will start analyzing any symptoms within few milliseconds, as opposed to 30 minutes what it takes for a radiologist to deduce if there is an ailment in the body or not. Now these are practical real life examples which are happening, whether it's about a lung disease or even a knee kind of a tear or something, or any kind of a what we say malfunctioning in the body. Other example in a manufacturing setup. Now this is a manufacturing setup, or one of the shot of the manufacturing facility of an Amazon, where it's not about just looking at any trespassing or any intruder coming into the warehouse, but it's also to start analyzing through the images getting captured and through the movement of the employees within that facility, that what is the likelihood of increasing the impact on the supply chain, which means what it takes for a person in terms of the time movement from one block to another, or any aspect in terms of how those kind of goods are placed. Now these are the examples where the companies are saying, look, let me start predicting the impact of supply chain through the usage of analytics and AI. This is one other example. Just look for this clip for 15 seconds. The real potential of AI making a lot of difference for our organization, ourselves, and even for our consumption as well. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. I think for all these exponential technologies, what we say, drones, blockchain, cybersecurity, as I mentioned, I think one of the facet is the data per se, when you collate or you kind of possess, gives enough indication for the organization to start taking some meaning out of it. Blockchain, for that, one is a whole aspect of when you're talking about transactions between two parties, getting all, I would say, in a mode where it's all being analyzed through a ledger system, as we say. The potential of analytics is simple over there to take out any anomalies or potential of frauds or any kind of, let's say, distortion which can happen when the transaction takes place. So banks have deployed what we say anomaly detection engines or kind of analytics algorithms, which are simply saying, okay, while blockchain is secure, but when you put your own patented algorithms, the blockchains between the two parties can become much more secure. So that's a very potential usage of analytics as part of the blockchain.
Smart contracts.
Yes.
Sameer, for taking us to the real-time business analytics world. Now we can break for tea, so we can come back after 15 minutes. Let me introduce our second speaker for the day, Mr. C.J.Ravi Shankar from Saji Tech. Mr. C.J. is going to speak in analytics in healthcare. So Mr. C.J. Ravi has held several executive positions during his professional tenure in US and India. So he was heading global solutions, global head at HCL Technologies. So now I'm giving it to you, sir.
Hi, good morning all. So we had the initial session about what data science is and what are the kind of opportunities that are available from an analytics perspective. Now I'll speak a little bit about healthcare and what is it that we can do in terms of using analytics in healthcare. We've been associated with SSN for almost the last 4 years. We work with them in terms of being able to do active projects through usage of healthcare data to do analytics projects, so that it gives students an understanding of the kind of data sets that are available, and also to be able to perform analytics on it, so that they have a real world experience before they head out to choose careers of their choice. So let me start with what is happening in healthcare. Healthcare is, I mean, like all of us know healthcare, I mean, it impacts us in one way or the other. We have all been a patient, or we know somebody who's been a patient, things like that. And one of the major changes that is happening, you can see around you, is no longer is somebody considered a patient. They have now become a customer. So if you look at it from hospitals like maternity hospitals like a Cloud9 or like a Motherhood that specialize in maternity. I mean, you no longer have to go to a traditional hospital. You go to a very specialized and a focused hospital, so that you get treated like a customer, not like a patient. And that's kind of like, you can see that in Apollo Sugar, because the feeling is a lot of the diseases that we encounter today are not a traditional disease where you need to sit in a hospital. It is like something like a diabetes or a cholesterol or any of these metabolic conditions. They don't impact you today, but they impact you maybe 20, 30 years from now. So the way that the approach has changed from treating somebody as a patient, having them kind of come to a hospital or a doctor's office to look at things, to something that's more evolved in looking at them as a customer. How do we get them to do things? Whether it is, if you're a diabetic patient, you need to exercise, you need to take the right medication. So how do we treat somebody like a customer or like somebody who is doing something longer? So that's a big change or an approach that is happening in healthcare in terms of how do we influence behavior and get people to make changes in their lifestyle so that they are able to take care of themselves better. Second thing is, like, if you look at it from health insurance companies, like a lot of health insurance companies have rolled out very disease specific plans. So if you look at Apollo Munich or like a Tata AG, they have plans for cancer, they have plans for diabetes, they have plans for cardiac conditions. So what that means is health insurance companies are starting to look at diseases as a way of providing cover rather than giving you cover for all hospitalization or all everything. So if you have a higher propensity to have a particular condition because your parents had diabetes or parents had cholesterol or conditions like that, they're able to now assess and they're able to give you those kind of very specific packages for that. So that's the second change that is happening from a health insurance perspective. Then if you look at it from a doctor's perspective, doctors and hospitals are the biggest ones that are changing. So recently, I was at Global Hospital, and as part of the transplant, their heart and kidney transplant initiative, they are starting to roll out a complete program. So it's no longer about you just coming to the hospital and getting a surgery done and going home, but they're able to look at it from an end-to-end perspective, so that prior diagnosis in terms of what is needed, actually coming in and doing the surgery, and then in terms of post-surgery, when you're home, you need to have some blood work done or other things done. They take care of it as a complete package. So from a hospital perspective also, they've started looking at healthcare not as an isolated transaction, but more as a complete whole episode or a whole procedure that needs to be taken care of. This is similar to what is happening in other financial services or other insurance industries where they want to look at you as a customer. So same thing is happening in healthcare to a large extent. And the focus is becoming more and more on the lifestyle diseases, which is things that don't impact you today, but if you have the disease, it's going to impact you 15 years from now, 20 years from now if you didn't do the right things. It could be like you're not taking enough calcium or vitamin D deficiency. It could be a lot of other health related things are there, for which you don't really need to be at a doctor's office or at a clinic every month or something like that, but giving you the tools that will enable you to take care of things by yourself. So that's becoming a major change in healthcare, and you will see this happening. This is happening in India, this is happening everywhere, where whether it is a hospital or a health insurance company, they're starting to give you packages. And how did all of this come about? You will see why did all of this come about. So the first thing is, if you went in for it's the concept of readmission. So if you went, this has been there in other industries, like if you did something, you did it right the first time. So if you produced a car, you made sure that the car did not have defects when it rolled out of the shop floor. Similarly, you went into a hospital for a surgery, you want to make sure that the patient does not come back for related conditions. So you did a bypass or you did a hip transplant, The patient goes out, you don't want them to come back again for the same condition. Maybe there is a problem with the sutures that were done, there was something else that was done. So we want to make sure that the care or the post-surgery care and the surgery happens the right way. Because readmissions by nature, once you have somebody leave the hospital and then come back, it costs twice the amount of money to take care of the same patient. And just the amount of problems and the amount of headache that is involved in it is a huge, I mean, that's a huge opportunity that hospitals are focusing on. Next one is about coordination of care. I'll give you a simple example. Coordination of care, all of these are very fancy jargon kind of symptoms, but it is very simple. I mean, if you went in, let's say like your uncle or somebody had a hip transplant or a knee transplant, they had some knee surgery, they finished it, they came out, the hospital says you should be following a certain diet for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You need to maybe not exercise, or you should not walk for 3 weeks, and maybe after the 3rd week you should start doing a small set of exercise, okay? Or a physio will come visit you and they'll help you do this exercise. The whole coordination of care is basically once you leave the hospital, somebody a physio has to come in and do something every 2 weeks or every 2 hours. So how do you coordinate all of this? So who is responsible for all of this? Today the patient is responsible for all of this in terms of scheduling a follow-up appointment, scheduling a physio visit, or all of that. So now if it were to be like a package or a bundle that gets coordinated properly, then things become easier and you are able to recover faster. If you did not do all of these things, then you end up going back to the hospital because you walked too fast, you should not have been walking, or you did things that you're not supposed to do, or you did not do the things that you were supposed to do, you did not take medication, could be those kind of things. So the whole opportunity around coordination of care is a big opportunity. And the last one is drugs. I mean, the famous saying is, drugs do not work on people who do not take them. So a lot of people don't end up taking a lot of drugs. So I mean, you are prescribed the drugs, but you don't take it on a regular fashion. So that leads to a lot of problems. So that's one. Second is also from a drug perspective, today you have a lot of generic drugs and branded drugs do the same thing, exact same thing. It could be ibuprofen, it could be called by some other branded name and does the exact same thing. So which is a drug that you take? So is there a cost impact and a value impact because of that? So all of these drug related opportunities are huge. Ensuring that people take drugs at the right time and they continuously take drugs is one huge opportunity around medication adherence. People not taking the right drugs is the second opportunity. And the third one is around being able to move somebody from a costly medication to a generic medication so that there is not a huge cost impact for them is the third opportunity. So there are a variety of opportunities on the drug space. So a lot of analytics, we'll give you some real examples in terms of how you can use analytics to kind of impact and change behavior. So how do we do all this analytics in healthcare as a topic of interest? So there are a lot of data sets that are used. If you are a pharmaceutical company, you have all these data about the science that went into manufacturing a drug. In terms of if you were like a Pfizer or a Merck, you have a lot of scientific data in terms of clinical trials, in terms of R&D data, in terms of what worked, what did not work, what molecules worked. More important, there's also rich data about what kind of patient behavior is there in terms of genetics and other areas about patient condition, patient behavior, patient propensity for a particular condition. A lot of these data sets are available within pharmaceutical companies and academic institutions, and a lot of these data sets are now becoming open and available to everybody. This is one industry, healthcare is one industry where there is a good amount of data about patients, good amount of data about physicians that's being put out. In the US, the Medicare, which is the owner of all the government health data, they release a lot of data. They release data on an annual basis in terms of patient behavior, drug costs, all of that gets released. So that's some of the data that we share with the SSN students in terms of doing the analytics. There is also other data from other data sets around clinical trials. What are the kind of clinical trials that are done? What are the results of the clinical trials? Whether they were successful, whether they were not successful. What are the kind of patients that were involved in it? What are the kind of investigators involved in it? Health insurance data in terms of claims. All of this is now available in a large extent. It is de-identified and made available. So this gives us a rich set of data on which analytics can be done. Sure. So first of all, from technology platform, we use standard tools like R, SAS or SPSS, but we rely extensively on R to do a lot of the analytics, R and Python to do the analytics. I mean, any kind of analytic tool is available today to do the analytics, so that is there. More so from a regulated standpoint, the messaging needs to be clear. So there's a good amount of regulatory aspect around the advertising. Especially if you're a pharma company and you're advertising that either it's a drug benefit or you want to be able to do that, that is a very restricted space that is there. So what we have seen in real life is like health insurance companies or pharma companies they use this kind of data to be able to do individual messaging. So that kind of clears them out of some of the regulatory aspects, but gives you the wherewithal to say this is the kind of, typically it will cost you 3 times more if you did not take your medication. If you spend $15 today and took your medication, it's going to help you avoid maybe $10,000, $20,000 of hospitalization later. So that is the kind of messaging they do, more personalized, more customized. Then from other regulatory aspects, being able to gather data is a bigger thing. Today there is so much of talk about getting IoT related data, device related data, and there is a lot of interest and people get the data, but how do you use it and how do you able to go back and use the data for other purposes is what is being discussed. So a lot of the data sets that we deal with are already de-identified, but they all come with a huge caveat in terms of we should not use the data set to do any kind of promotional activity or any kind of marketing activity to that, because at the end of the day, even with all the de-identification, there is a good amount of data that is present which you can use to track down physicians. I mean, like easily you can track down the physicians, and from there maybe I mean it's too hard to go down to a patient level, but definitely physician groups and individual physicians are easily trackable from these data sets, and then being able to go there and see this is the kind of pool of patient that they are looking at is all possible. So huge regulatory aspect is to make sure that the data is not used for promotional purposes or marketing purposes is there.
The reason why I
Brings up an interesting topic is like a lot of analytics that you do around health. Most of the analytics we stray away from all the genetic and the clinical aspect of it, because that's a lot more science to it, a lot more nuanced and very, very domain intensive. The things that we focus on are more around behavior, so that if somebody is not doing something that they should be doing, can we change it? So it's like somebody is supposed to pay the credit card bills and they're not paying it, then I'm able to kind of do things about it. So similarly, like those are the kind of areas that a lot of the analytics that is today available focuses on. The science related analytics is a huge area in terms of whether it could be imaging, it could be genetics, it could be all the omics kind of analytics that happen. But those are done more at the academic and more specialized level. So here it is more in terms of behavior. How can you change behavior? And the other bigger aspect of analytics we have not spoken about here is all these data sets give you rich data about physicians. So how do you target physicians? That's what a lot of pharma companies use this for. Being able to understand the patient flow that's happening with the physician, the kind of patients that visit a physician, and then being able to go and target them to be able to push their drugs or get them to change things. So there are a lot of other aspects of it that happen here. So the same data is used to identify physicians that are more efficient. So the traditional way of identifying physicians in pharma was to be what they call key opinion leaders, basically people who published a lot or who were seen as pioneers in the field, whether it is in any of the chosen fields that they had. And then you kind of work with them to market the drug, so that if they spoke about it, if they kind of approved of it and used it, then everybody else is going to do. But now today it's becoming slightly more nuanced in terms of it's not just the people that publish or are seen as pioneers in their field, but also we are starting to use other data sets around like social reviews, like Yelp, restaurant ratings. There are also physician reviews ratings that are sites that are coming up with patient reviews. So those are being used to identify physicians who are really good with their bedside manners or who are very good with patients that are there. So and then being able to, they might not be a key opinion, or they might not be publishing a lot of articles, but they have a good amount of patient flow and they are very good with it as seen by the patient. So pharma companies are starting to target them apart from just key opinion leaders that they do traditionally. So the second aspect of the second key stakeholder in all those data sets is around physician, and being able to identify, understand physicians, how they work, how they prescribe, what kind of patients they see, and what kind of specialization. One of the big areas that is today becoming is how do you, I mean, like, just look at it for ourselves, right? If my one of our close relatives or neighbors wanted to do a bypass surgery, we're just going to go around and ask 5 people, who do you think, or who do you recommend? We ask a doctor or we ask a friend. And that's how it's traditionally been done everywhere in the world, okay, in terms of you talk to somebody. But what some of the new analytics that is coming out is like, how do you find out doctors that are really specialists in a particular field, okay? So, and it's not about in a particular field, right? You only care about a doctor who has done enough bypass surgeries, because that's what you're going to get for yourself. So, should it be somebody who has done a lot of bypass surgeries, or should it be somebody who has done a lot of bypass surgeries relative to all the surgeries they do? So, these are ways in which you are able to identify provider specialization under procedure specialization. And that's all comes from the data that is there. And then you are able to look at it and say, you're also able to track outcomes of those kind of physicians. So if you find somebody who's been able to do a lot of bypass surgeries, and he does only bypass surgeries and doesn't do anything else, is their outcome better than somebody who does a lot of heart related surgeries? So those kind of data is today available, and those are being used for all these kind of referral mechanisms. Because today, if you look at it, a lot of it is word of mouth, and I know this great doctor, I work in Muller or I work in Fortis and I know this great doctor. I mean, it might be a true assessment, but it's not an objective assessment. But now data is being used to kind of make those assessments so that you can do referrals that are much more scientific, that are much more detailed and nuanced and objective that you can use. So the whole bunch of analytics happens around being able to measure physician quality, physician behavior.
Thank you, Mr. CJ. It's actually an eye-opening session. Thanks for sharing your experience in data sciences and data analytics in healthcare domain. Now, may I invite Mr. Rajeev Bhattacharya. So, he's going to speak in the topic of cognitive analytics. So, he's a solution architect at IBM, works in supply chain services. He's specialized in analytics, big data, data warehousing, cognitive computing, and application programming. Very important thing is, he has multiple patents in analytics space. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Still morning, still not past 12, right? So, good morning, everybody. My name is Rajiv, and I work as a solution architect with IBM. I'm working on analytics for more than a decade now. And the plan here is to take you through basic things about analytics, few discussions about what analytics is all about, and what is this cognitive umbrella that we talk about, what is cognitive. So we'll get started with a basic thing about business analytics. As we know, business analytics is mostly about understanding what is there within the data, trying to find out hidden patterns, hidden trends, which we cannot see with naked eye. So that's where there have been tools in the market. As you have heard in the previous presentation, there were business intelligence tools. And then if you divide analytics, there are 4 key dimensions that you can divide it into. There is something called descriptive analytics, which is nothing much more than reporting. Then there is diagnostic analytics. In diagnostic analytics, what you do is basically find out reasons. So that goes hand in hand with business analytics. So tools like MicroStrategy, Tableau, Cognos from IBM. So these all tools define this, take care of this portion where we talk about diagnostic analytics and descriptive analytics. Then comes the next section, which is predictive. So in predictive, you have just heard that in healthcare they're using R, SAS, and SPSS. So these are the 3 tools which are mainly used in the predictive analytics area today, where you forecast, where you say that if I change this key parameter in business, what might happen down the line. So that is what predictive is. And on top of that, there is something called prescriptive. Prescriptive is something where you tell the business user that what is the outcome of this analytics. So that's what prescriptive is. So in case of descriptive analytics, in this course, we are using a tool called Cognos. In case of prescriptive, there is a tool called SPSS, which is being used. And also in the case of cognitive, we use APIs of Watson. And in terms of big data, we have some IBM products which work on big data as well. So these are the 4 things that are mainly covered in the IBM portion of the tool, IBM tools that are used for this course. Now, we say that the future of business analytics is now. So this has been said 5 years ago as well. This is being said again now. This is due to the data deluge that we talk about, right? Too much data that we cannot handle. The data we had been working upon just form a 20% of the whole data of the world. We are saying that by 2020, we'll have a digital universe which will consist of 45 zettabytes, which is around, you can say it's about 100% increase within a span of 8 years. The number is mind-boggling. So let's see a few cases here. Do we know